A woman's openness, emotionally or physically, emerges only when she feels safe, not pressured. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about feminine psychology. So many people think that connection is about timing, charm, or the perfect move, but in reality, a woman's body and mind respond to one thing above all: safety. Safety is the language that her emotions understand before words even form. You can say everything right, look confident, carry yourself well, but if her nervous system senses tension, force, or emotional instability, she will close off instantly. The feminine energy is not drawn to intensity, it's drawn to security. When a woman feels that she can trust the emotional climate around her, her whole demeanor changes, she laughs more freely, her eyes stay longer, and her body relaxes. That's not something you can fake, and that's not something she decides consciously. It's biological, psychological, and deeply emotional. Understanding this requires emotional maturity. You cannot expect a woman to feel safe if you yourself are living in emotional chaos. The energy you carry becomes the atmosphere she feels. If your words say one thing but your energy says another, her instincts will read the truth immediately. Women are wired to detect inconsistency. Their intuition evolved for safety, and that's why they can sense emotional disconnection faster than logic can explain. This is why calmness, presence, and authenticity are far more attractive than effort, persuasion, or performance. When your energy is grounded, she feels it in her body before she even processes it in her mind. That's why Sadia often speaks about emotional alignment and vibrational safety, the idea that the energy of your presence tells her whether she can open up or needs to protect herself. Now, what does feeling safe actually mean in a woman's psychology? It means she can be herself without fear of being judged, rejected, or rushed. It means she doesn't feel like she has to perform to be liked. It means she senses that her boundaries will be respected even when they're unspoken. When a woman feels this, her guard doesn't have to exist. The masculine energy that truly leads is not the one that pushes. It's the one that provides emotional security without demanding anything in return. That's when she starts to open up naturally. You don't need to convince her to connect with you. She begins to move closer on her own because she feels emotionally protected. The most beautiful thing about female psychology is that the feminine doesn't open from logic. It opens from emotion. You can't make her feel safe by explaining that you're trustworthy. She has to feel it through your consistency, your tone, your patience, your respect. The more you try to prove safety, the more pressure you create. The more you embody safety, the more effortlessly she feels it. And that's the difference between attraction that fades and connection that grows. True attraction builds in silence, in the calm, patient spaces where a woman feels seen, not sold. Let's go deeper. Many men misunderstand why some women become distant after moments of closeness. It's not because she's confused, it's because something in her nervous system didn't feel entirely secure. A woman can be physically close yet emotionally withdrawn if she doesn't feel safe. And that's why real intimacy is emotional first, physical second. When she feels safe in your emotional energy, her feminine side begins to trust that it can rest. Resting is what allows her to open up fully, not because she's told to, but because her entire being relaxes into that connection. This is also why presence matters more than perfection. When you're truly present, you give her the signal that she is not being objectified or rushed. Presence communicates, I'm here with you. Not, I want something from you. That one subtle difference creates a shift in her entire emotional state. She moves from guarded to receptive, from alert to expressive. When a woman feels emotionally seen, her body follows her emotions. She becomes more affectionate, more engaging, more open. You didn't get her to do that. You created an emotional space she wanted to. The masculine role in its purest form is to hold emotional stability. The feminine role is to flow within that stability. When both energies are balanced, connection feels effortless. But when the masculine energy becomes inconsistent, too intense one moment, detached the next, the feminine energy retreats. Safety disappears. And once safety disappears, connection becomes mechanical. You can't force what psychology won't allow. Her nervous system must relax for her emotions to trust you. So how do you create that kind of safety? By being honest, emotionally regulated, and consistent in your presence. Don't confuse attention with connection. Attention is easy, presence is rare. Presence is when you truly listen, when you respond instead of react, when your energy says, you're safe here. That's when she begins to unfold her real self, the side of her that's warm, nurturing, playful, and deeply feminine. That version of her only exists when she's not defending herself. A woman's sense of safety is not created through promises or poetic words. It is created through the steady rhythm of behavior that matches intention. Many people believe that women fall for what they hear, but the truth is they fall for what they feel. And feeling doesn't come from a sentence, it comes from energy. A woman listens with her emotions before her ears. She studies your tone, your reactions, your pauses, and the subtle vibrations of your energy. She isn't measuring what you say, she's observing if your soul and speech align, if your words and actions don't mirror each other. She withdraws not because she's playing games, but because her psychology is wired to detect dissonance. Consistency is emotional proof, tells her, you mean what you say. When you keep showing up with the same calm, grounded energy, she starts to trust that your presence isn't temporary. It's not grand gestures that make her feel safe. It's the quiet repetition of reliability. When she sees that you react with patience instead of anger, listen without interruption, and show up even in small moments, her nervous system begins to relax. That relaxation is not a luxury for her. It's survival. The feminine energy cannot open in instability. It needs to know that the ground beneath it won't shift unexpectedly. You see, tone is another language of safety. A man may speak the same words, but his tone determines how they land. The difference between pressure and peace often lies in delivery. A gentle, calm tone communicates emotional maturity. It tells her subconscious that she doesn't need to defend herself. When your voice carries steadiness, she associates it with emotional regulation, and that is deeply attractive to a woman because it mirrors the masculine essence. She craves protection without control, direction without dominance, strength without aggression. The wrong tone, even with good words, can shut her down. The right tone, even with few words, can make her feel deeply secure. Emotional attunement is where understanding transforms into connection. To be attuned means to feel her emotions without her needing to explain them. It's the art of sensing when she's withdrawn, when she's tense, when her silence is not rejection but reflection. Women often test through emotion, not logic. She might pull away slightly, not because she wants to create distance, but to see if you can emotionally meet her where she is. When you respond with patience, curiosity, and calm instead of defensiveness, she feels seen. That is the essence of emotional safety, when she realizes she can express her truth and still be accepted. Sadia often emphasizes that feminine energy is like water. It flows only when the container is stable. If the masculine energy keeps shifting, the feminine energy becomes turbulent. That's why words alone cannot build trust. They evaporate quickly if they're not supported by emotional consistency. A man might say, you can trust me, but if his tone carries impatience or if his actions reflect unpredictability, her instincts won't believe him. You cannot talk a woman into trust. You must show it through presence, and presence doesn't mean constant contact. It means consistent energy. You can be miles apart, but still make her feel safe if your emotional pattern remains predictable. When your communication rhythm has integrity, she doesn't need to question your intentions. But when your presence fluctuates, when one day you're deeply invested and the next you're emotionally absent, she reads that instability as danger. To the female mind, unpredictability feels unsafe because it reminds her of abandonment or rejection. That's why consistency is not a routine, it's emotional leadership. There's also something profound about nonverbal reassurance. A woman feels safe not when you tell her she's valued, but when you behave as if she's valued. She feels it when you maintain eye contact that says, I see you. She feels it when you pause instead of reacting to her emotion. She feels it when your energy doesn't shift even when she's upset. That's what allows her to surrender into emotional comfort. The psychology behind this is simple. Her limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, calms down when exposed to stable emotional energy. That's why being consistent and emotionally attuned is not just its neuroscience. Most men underestimate the power of emotional regulation. They believe safety comes from reassurance, gifts, or attention. But those things fade quickly if the emotional climate is volatile. When you can remain emotionally composed while she's expressing intensity, you send a signal to her subconscious, you're safe. I'm not going anywhere. And that's when the feminine relaxes. When she no longer needs to protect herself, her real self emerges. The soft, nurturing, expressive energy that was hidden beneath her guard. There's another side to this too, your own self-awareness. You can't make someone feel safe if you're disconnected from your own emotions. Attunement begins with inner stability. If you haven't learned to calm your own storms, you'll unconsciously project them onto her. Emotional safety isn't about perfection, it's about regulation. It's the ability to hold your ground when emotions rise. That's what makes a woman feel like she can trust your energy. Think of it this way, a woman's body relaxes when her heart trusts. And her heart trusts when her emotions feel mirrored, not managed. She doesn't want someone to fix her, she wants someone to understand her. That understanding doesn't come from words. It comes from energy, tone, and behavior. When she feels that you understand her rhythm, that you don't rush her process, and that your presence doesn't depend on her mood. She opens naturally. That's how feminine trust grows, quietly, gradually, beautifully. At the end of the day, words may start connection, but only consistency deepens it. Tone may communicate care, but only emotional attunement sustains it. Safety is not built in conversations, it's built in moments. It's in how you react when she's vulnerable, in how you listen when she's quiet, in how you hold emotional space without trying to change her feelings. When you master that, you stop needing to convince her of your intentions. She will already know. Because safety isn't spoken, it's felt. A woman's nervous system is remarkably perceptive, far beyond what most people realize. She does not only hear words, she feels them, processes them, and reacts to the energy behind them even before she forms conscious thoughts. This is a fundamental principle of female psychology, and understanding it is key to creating genuine connection. Words are just a surface layer, a translation of the deeper truth that her subconscious is already sensing. If your energy is chaotic, stressed, or inconsistent, she will notice immediately, even if your words are reassuring, flattering, or persuasive. It is not manipulation or trickery. It is biology. The female nervous system has evolved to detect emotional truth quickly because historically survival depended on it. She doesn't decide consciously whether she feels safe or attracted. Her body decides first. When a woman interacts with someone, her attention is not solely on the literal conversation. Her eyes, her body posture, her breathing, even micro expressions, all of these become signals that inform her nervous system about the environment she is in. She notices the slightest tremor in a voice, the tension in a shoulder, or the rhythm of your breathing. These subtle cues communicate more than words ever could. Her limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, deciphers energy patterns and reacts faster than the rational mind can process the conversation. That is why you can say all the right things and still fail to connect if your underlying energy doesn't match. Words may tell her one story, but her nervous system will always know the truth. Calmness is magnetic in this sense. When your presence communicates stability, a woman's nervous system registers safety. Calmness doesn't mean passive or emotionless. It means grounded, present, and self-regulated. A calm demeanor signals that you are capable of managing stress and maintaining composure. That reliability, whether expressed through tone, gestures, or just the steady energy you carry, is what allows her body to relax. Once her nervous system recognizes calmness, her mind can follow and emotional openness begins. Attempting to charm or impress her without cultivating this inner stability is ultimately ineffective because charm is a surface-level signal. It may create temporary attention, but it does not influence the deeper emotional channels that determine trust, comfort, and genuine attraction. Another critical factor is